welcome all here. Normally, I would say have a good cup of coffee, but that you will have to do yourself, I guess. So let's go around the table. I guess, Corina, you are the co-host. We skip immediately to Andre Langlois. Andre?
Yes, hi. So my name is Andre Langlois. I'm a French-German lawyer. On one hand side, on the other side, I'm Secretary General of European Solar Manufacturing Council, and as well a little bit involved in rural electrification in Africa and some projects. Right now, I come to you from the Alps in Annecy. I'm right now close to Geneva. Thank you for organizing everything.
Welcome. Then we have Antonella Battaglini. Antonella?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm been moderating this morning, and I'm from RGI. Thanks a lot, Ronnie, for doing this, and welcome to everybody.
Okay, then Barbara Mauricio.
Hi, everyone. I work at a Portuguese NGO, Zero, and I'm working currently on projects related to climate change, European projects. So it's very useful for me to be learning from this workshop.
Okay, then we have David Frank.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, my name is David Frank, and I'm working as a policy advisor at German Watch, an NGO in Germany, about the whole debate of expanding the power grid.
Okay, then Fabian Stichtenoot. Fabian, floor is yours.
Yes, hello, I'm Fabian. I'm an activist from Fridays for Future Germany, and I'm also studying electrical engineering at the Technical University in Berlin.
Okay, an die Straße der 17. Juni. Okay, then we have the Megan O'Reilly. Megan?
Hello. Yes, my name is Megan O'Reilly. I work with the Regulatory Assistance Project in both our Europe and US teams. And we're working on gas issues specifically as part of our much broader work where we assist policymakers and regulators. And thanks very much for holding this workshop.
Okay, Miguel Montero. Miguel?
Everybody, my name is Miguel. I will start working on photovoltaic projects in Portugal, in Lisbon. And I joined this because I'm very curious and I'm very passionate about this area and to learn something more. Thank you for everybody.
Okay, then we have Mihai Mladin.
Hello, hello everyone. I'm Mihai Mladin from Romania Energy Center. I'm project manager in several Horizon 2020 projects in the field of integration of renewables and cloud-based services for DSOs, mainly coordinating the work packages on regulations, business models, and corporate social responsibility. Thank you.
Okay, and I think then I have still Stefan Woodhouse on the list. Stefan? Stefan, you are muted, I guess. Stefan here?
Well, maybe he's on the phone.
Yeah, he's muted, so no problem. Let's go ahead. Okay, I will welcome you in this session and how to make things work and how things will be trying to get there. And I made a very short presentation. I think you can see my screen in the meantime. And I hope it's going to work. Okay, and come on.
The screen is working, Ronnie.
The screen is working. Now we have to start up the presentation and the
Do you see the presentation? I have already put up your slides.
No, but no problem. I've changed the slides a bit. Sorry, that's something I cannot leave out. I work on things while I changed a few things while you were doing the introduction because I thought it was better to do so. So let's go ahead. So we have to have a look on how we're going to make things work and how we're gonna make that happen. That whole transition, that whole electrification. That was what was called the pathway. And we all know the policies, and still this figure of how much electricity it has to be is still very debatable. Also this morning, but things are for sure that by 2030 we will have at least 50%, for 40, maybe 40, 50%, 60% of renewables in the electricity system, and we have to handle that. That is the only thing we have to do, and we have 10 years time for doing that. And this is something I wanted to, which is also what we were talking about this morning, and a lot of talk about it, is system integration. Now, this is the drawing that we use at our place at Energyville to show where we're at. And if you look at the whole system, my dear friends here, the problem is not the electricity system. The problem is clearly how are we going to integrate it all. So we have the smart grids, we have the grids like 50 Hertz, like Tenet, etc. And those are smarter, great, fun, a lot of transport to be done there. But we have also other energy vectors. This morning there was a lot of talk about sustainable molecules. Do we need a gas network? How much gas will we have? Which gas will we have? Will it be hydrogen? Will it be methane? Or will it be liquid molecules like methanol? There is also going to be, and already is, a lot of thermal energy also in networks. And we will have those guys and girls called prosumers. And the whole thing is going to be linked with transport. So the transport network, the way people are moving, is going to be integrated in our electricity system. And of course, it's all going to be more and more electrified. And I always say and technically speaking, we have probably the return of direct current, but I always say to my PhD students, you normally get at home 3 energy bills. The first energy bill is the electricity bill. The second probably is for gas or a heat network to heat your house. And the third is the fuel for the car. And the integration of the energy vectors is clearly in the fact that we will end up as a consumer, as a prosumer, with 1 bill for energy services. So this is the integration we are looking at. And how are we going to make that possible? So it's far more than just putting new high voltage lines or accommodating PV panels and a bit of storage. It's really how to make it happen that people are going to enjoy energy services without any intransparent elements. And we also look at that from a consumer point of view. And that's why I added this slide. People see the electricity system, see the energy system in 3 layers. They have the invisible. Yeah.
Excuse me, Ronnie. Do the other ones? Do you see the slides? Because I can't.
No, Ronnie, you would have to share your screen in order for us to see the slide.
Yeah, I did share my screen. Sorry, this is bad.
No problem. So you can go on Zoom. In the middle, you have a share screen button. If you you have to select the window. So the PowerPoint presentation, I assume it would be.
Yeah.
And then on select OK. Yes.
Yeah.
You can see.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Should have said. Excuse me.
Can you also go to yes. Perfect.
Okay, so this was the one with the most important one which I showed until now, which was the one with the integration of the whole system. So the 3 energy vectors which are coming along and which are brought together into 1 service bill for energy as a service for transport, heating, and electricity. And the most important thing which I wanted to share with you is how are we going to get the citizen to fly, to make it fly? And we have 3 levels of interest of the citizen: the invisible, the intangible element, which is the climate, and the citizen is not really interested in that. Then you have the visible one, where you have the high voltage lines, where we have the wind turbines, etc. And then you have his living, his or her living environment. And we have to make it clear that we bring comfort to that living environment. So the consumer and the prosumer wants to enjoy more comfort by introducing electric vehicles, heat pumps, etc. It makes the local environment much more agreeable. And in the meanwhile, we solve the problem in the climate of surroundings. So that's really, we have to bring it clear that making the transition to a carbon neutral society brings more comfort in the everyday life. Okay, and then, so we have now, and that's brings us to where we have to be. We have a data, massive amount of data with a distributed generation, with other energy vectors. We have to integrate it all, bring it to the city and to the industry to have a reliable, affordable, sustainable system. That's all we have to do. And then we come to our task this afternoon. So we have and I don't know whether you're aware of this one, but this is the most important for us, for our discussion here. The most important, my feeling, the most important communication of the EU that we have to look at. That's communication 299, and I will try to, this is scary. Does it work? Can you see it? Somebody help?
We can
You can see the link.
Oh, only the link. You don't see the
I can see everything, Ronnie.
Okay, so you see, you really should read this, because these are the 3 points where the Commission is working on. The first point is more circular energy system. So waste energy, waste heat, and also renovation is the first part. The second part is electrify whatever you can. And the third point is clean fuels, in that succession. So if we then return to what we see here, the question is, what is the roadmap to make the second important point feasible? And that, my dear friends, the question is, how are we going to get there? What do you think about that system integration? And how do we have to orient, or can we orient the recovery plan so we electrify and decarbonize industry? How can we engage the individual customer for filling these energy services? And can the system provide a backbone for getting there? So that's really what I wanted to show you, what I wanted, the questions that I wanted to raise. And maybe I can ask the host now to put this slide on, and I stop sharing my my slide so I can see who raises his hand. And the first one who I saw that has done so is Stefan. Stefan, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm Stephen Woodhouse. I'm from A3 Management Consulting, used to be known as Poiri, and I'm working on energy transition issues. I work on market design. We were actually cooking up some concepts for a 100% renewable energy system. I don't agree with the first one, that it's all about efficiency. There comes a point where it matters more when you consume your energy than how much. So of course, efficiency is important, but in our fully optimized system, the timing of consumption perhaps matters more even than the quantity. And I would argue that the integration of the systems requires us to change our attitude. I learned when I came into energy 25 years ago that electricity is different from everything else. Number one, you can't store it. Number two, the grid is interconnected, so everybody shares the same reliability. And number three, you can't oblige people to pre-contract. You have to deal with things after the event. And I think with digital tools and the advent of cheap batteries, every one of those tenets is different. So those are all false assumptions. So energy becomes less different. And we have operated our entire system on a mentality of predict and provide to meet all of the customers' needs and their desires and their wishes and their nice to haves. We've never done anything to moderate the pattern of consumption of customers. And in the new world, when we electrify both transport and heating, reliability doesn't matter in the same sense. My EV charger does not need second by second reliable electricity supply. So when we start connecting these new loads, we need to move away from the very concept of reliability and security standards. With digital technologies, we can give different levels of reliability and security to different appliances. So I need 100% reliability of my automotive services. My car must take me where I want to go when I need it, but I don't need electrical reliability second by second when I'm charging it. The same for my refrigerator. I don't care when the compressor comes on and off, it's irrelevant. Sorry, I should have had the video. And similarly, the other things that we will newly be electrifying, heating, cooling, transportation, have embedded storage. So we need to fundamentally alter the principles by which we connect and give access rights to our newly connected loads. And if we build data centers the way we used to build data centers, we're missing the point. 50% of the load of a data center is about cooling, and it's not time sensitive. If you bake that into the design, you actually build things that are suitable for sector coupling. But if we build them on the old-fashioned paradigms of firm access rights and connection standards, we're already losing the potential for the efficient sector coupling. So I stop.
Okay, thank you. Anyone who wants to add and comment on that? Is this a general statement? I think it's a quite bold statement, so that's what I like for the start. Okay.
Just one short question from my side. When exactly was issued this EU communication 2099? It's a recent one?
July 8th. July 8th.
July 8th.
Yeah. So it's a very recent one, and for me, it gives a good. It gives a good reasoning. It's not a lobby-based statement for one of the technologies. It gives a very good overview.
See.
That's my general feeling.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Antonella.
Yes, thank you. It was me who basically wanted to have this conversation, and maybe it's useful to get everybody on board talking to each other. First of all, please put your video on so that we can see also who wants to talk. Thanks a lot. And the other is I would like to share with you why I wanted to have this conversation. First of all, it is important to stress that electrification has to come with renewables, because very often we give it for granted and not everyone is committed to electrifying things with renewable. And if we don't do it, then the help to the fight against climate change is not clear. The second thing is that there is at the moment a hype on hydrogen. A lot of people talk about the role of hydrogen without talking at the same time that it is a minor complementary element to the electrification. And so in the title of this working group, I really thought about talking about the roadmap. Because a roadmap for electrification doesn't mean that we electrify 100%. I'm fully aware myself that 100% electrification may bring a huge energy saving in the system, but it's going to be extremely difficult for certain sectors. So let's clarify how do we already today, despite all the uncertainties, start to understand how to electrify all that is possible and make it fast. Because if we do this, then we also bring clarity of what cannot be electrified and therefore would require molecules. So, and I hope that everyone can contribute to this. And of course, Ronnie, you have already presented some important ideas of integration, and Stefan is always very critical. I've known him for quite some time, so it's good.
Yeah, and also we should not forget, and that's often forgotten by the colleagues of the molecules, each of those molecules has to be coming out of electricity. And one of the questions which I have, and it was already addressed this morning also by the director of energy from Berlin, will we produce those molecules here that will then have a major impact on our electricity system, or will we import them themselves? And this is the first choice we have to make, but I would stay away from that choice, and let's look, how can we electrify everything that has to be electrified, that we know that has to be electrified already? That would roughly, at a minimum by 2050, double the electricity demand we have today. Okay, that's the only thing we have to do. And we have to do that, and that's my first question. Who thinks that it will be most of it distributed or most of it central? Or is it a stupid question which I'm raising, and is it going to be as much a challenge for the transmission part as it is for distribution part?
Yeah,
who wants to shoot?
I would say that the challenge is for both of them. If we are speaking about integration of renewables, a first challenge we have is on balancing the energy systems from the perspective of frequency of voltage control. Things are going to be different, and new concepts to assure the balance of the energy system within this condition are absolutely mandatory. And these will definitely have impact in the network codes that are applicable for the transmission system operators and the DSOs as well. And we reach to a point when the collaboration between TSOs and DSOs is going to be quite critical. They used to have, let's say, a separate behavior. Okay, we are doing this, you are doing that. You are on transmission, we just handle our distribution properly. Things are not going to be the same further on, given the further growing of renewables into the network. This is one thing. And we recently accomplished a project reserve that handled this issue. What's going to happen with the balance of the energy system under these conditions? And further on, of course, in order to better operate the network, what Stephen mentioned is absolutely relevant. We need a high degree of digitization of the energy system from all perspectives in order to better operate and have, let's say, a better impact on the whole. And this way, I have the feeling that from one project to another, we are basically accompanying this journey from assuring the balance and further finding solutions to better operate and to have a better impact on the final consumer.
Thank you, Michal. Should those codes, network codes, I'm a bit lukewarm for network codes. Should they be proactive or reactive? For my feeling that at the moment they are too much reactive.
Yes, this is what is happening. They are too much reactive. What we try to do within our project is to be a little bit more active. We formulated several proposals in order to find solutions from the technical perspective as well as from the market perspective. And we tried to push as much as we could these proposals in front of the NSOE and all the relevant organizations that are in position to further adopt or to, let's say, to support the adoption of the regulatory measures that are needed.
Okay.
Of course, finally leading to the European Union through ACER, the Agency for European Regulators, and CER, the Council of European Energy Regulators.
Yeah, okay. May I thank you for the input. There is a hand by Andre Langlois. Andre?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. First, thank you, Ronnie, for your presentation. What I like a lot is these different, let's say, bubbles: living environment, visible, tangible energy, and invisible, intangible energy. And you raised the question about distributed or not energy systems. I mean, I remember earlier this year there had been from IRENA organized a long-term energy scenario, and there all of the experts, for them was pretty clear. We're leaving the centralized system. We're heading to a distributed energy system, and in between we're going to have we're going to have decentralized energy systems. But I think that's just one step, because most of the time when we talk about energy systems, the people just talk about electricity systems. And what you mentioned before is absolutely right. We need to have a holistic approach. We can't see electricity all by itself. We need to put it together with heat, with transport. And very often, if you go in cities, well, you have just next door, you have a huge factory, and well, they have to cool down things, but they could use as well the heat for a heat grid. But I would like to say two things. This morning, Thorsten Herdan said, yes, Germany does a lot of effort, and there had been as well some people, Fabian, he was not really completely happy with the praise of what said Thorsten. I agree entirely with Fabian. And what he said, well, Germany going to import energy. Of course, yes. But does it have to come from, I don't know, wind parks from Chile? I think what we should start with is really how can we make it possible to produce as local as possible? And start with decentralized systems, but as well with a holistic approach. And I quote you one sentence from Bertrand Piccard, the solar pioneer with his airplane. He said in March to me that the best benefit of electric car is when it stands still, and then when we can use the battery system. So I think it's important that we make a definition as well of the links. And then, for example, in Germany, you have huge wind parks in the northern parts, and they are still not able to handle it, what we've heard as well earlier, because there are no connection lines. So this could be an advantage for these mainly underdeveloped areas from the economic point of view, to attract industry, because they can offer cheap energy. If you see the rural area, lots of industry came there because there has been carbon or coal. Quite some time ago. So coal was the guarantee to have access to electricity. So that could be a point. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, as a humble foreigner, but knowing Germany quite well, I've studied at the RWTH and also von Humboldt Stipendiat. So I'm not going to discuss the fact that you can have a two-price system in Germany to reduce the flows, etc. That would be politically incorrect to do so.
Then I lower my hand again.
Okay, okay. You know, so I gave an answer to your question. Yeah, great. Let's look around. Dörte, Fabian, any comment on that?
There are 18 people in this group.
Yeah, so I want to see hands. Otherwise, I ask you to sing a song. It's up to you. Megan, Megan, you're in Ireland, and you are quite, say, overwhelmed by wind energy. Sometimes a bit too much, even. How are you seeing it? Is there a lot of distributed generation there, or is it all central wind parks? How are you trying to get a balance into such a wind-dominated system?
Unfortunately, despite my name, I'm actually in the United States. I work in our...
Okay.
So can't answer your question.
So
Okay.
it's not, sorry, Ronnie, but there are some very good brains in this group.
Yeah, I know.
And so I want to make a small survey, if you allow me, and ask first of all, if everyone can put the video on, then we can do the vote, to put the hands up. And if you cannot put the vote on, the video on, just put the hand, raise your hand virtually. And I would like to know who agrees with the fact that we need to develop a roadmap for electrification. So hands up for having a roadmap, and all the others then of course can, those who do not put the hands up means that they do not agree, and we start from there. The video, those with videos are all in agreement. And those without videos, let me count. Mihai doesn't agree, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would say 50-50. Ronnie, 50-50 for an electrification roadmap.
I thought they were more in favor, but maybe maybe I'm an optimistic. It's difficult for me to understand that they can be against the roadmap. We're not going to do this walk in the dark, are we? That would be that would be very, very difficult. The question is, if we say who is in favor of a roadmap, then becomes a real question: is this roadmap going to be distributed or central?
Probably it will be both distributed and central.
Yeah, but do you need a? When it's put otherwise, do you need a? You need a central roadmap for transmission, okay? But do you need a central roadmap for distributed generation, or can you work with roadmaps which are adapted to local circumstances?
Well, I think we are getting into a philosophical discussion.
No.
But the roadmap doesn't mean that it is central or decentral. It means that it creates a pathway for different options, different technologies, different geographies, different sizes to contribute to a goal, which is electrification in our case. And in these pathways, of course, the centralized resources will play, I believe, an equal role to all, or even less, to all the decentralized resources.
May I?
Ronnie, and Antonella, let me ask a question. Well, I'm a lawyer, but let me be as well a little bit avocatus diaboli. For me, the question would be as well, what is centralized and what is decentralized? Because sometimes we consider centralized, okay, that are the, well, since I'm from a renewable energy sector, the bad ones, nuclear and coal power plants. But if we have large-scale wind parks, or what we have, I mean, we should not forget the largest solar PV park in China is bigger than what entire France has brought to the grid last year. So it's huge. Is this centralized? Is it decentralized? And how do we make the definition?
Fully correct. an offshore wind park of 700 megawatt is as centralized as a 700 megawatt coal-fired power plant. That's for sure. Okay, so centralized and decentralized have nothing to do with renewables. If you look at if you look at the Three Gorges Dam in China, it's 11 gigawatt renewable centralized generation.
I disagree.
What?
I disagree.
It's
And I
11...
disagree because I think that we need to overcome this centralized versus decentralized dilemma. The reality is that it is large or it is small. And de facto, everything which is renewables is somehow decentralized, either large or either small. And I don't want to talk about generation. If we have a system discussion, we need to talk about resources. So, and the resources include generation, the demand, the flexibility, and all the other bits and pieces that come with it. And this can be large or small. And de facto, I believe that the renewable energy system is intrinsically and philosophically a decentralized energy system. But then the question remains, a lot of people understand decentralization with autarky, with being isolated. I understand decentralization as an optimization process of harvesting the resources wherever they are at any point in time and make the best use of them.
Again, coming back to your the roadmap, can we make a roadmap separately for the electricity system? I make it clear. If I look at the slide which I shown, where the heat network is next to the electricity network, and the heat network can easily store a lot of energy. Okay, can we make a roadmap which distinguish between point 1 and 2 of that communication of the Commission? It's a question to the group. Eh? I'm not trying to give an answer here. Eh? But can a roadmap for only the electricity system be designed? If I look how intimately it is going to be linked with a digital network, and how intimately it will be linked to heat, and it will be linked to transport. Somebody said the electric vehicles are the most important when they are still. You can use the battery. I tend not to agree because I like to drive my car. I drive now already 5 years electric, so it's fun. But can we really look at one of the parts and make a separate roadmap, not accounting for the rest?
I think the beauty of a roadmap is that you have to consider everything, and it's not done in isolation, but it is rather an holistic overview on how the different options, the different actors, the different technologies contribute to achieving a certain goal. So the question is that you cannot make a distinction between the heat sector and the electricity sector. You have to look at them together because we are looking at the system and not at electricity only.
Okay, other remarks on that? Any comments?
Yeah, I think we can judge things separately up to a certain level. But this holistic approach on energies and not electricity only definitely is going to be more relevant and more close to reality. To be honest, I'm involved so far in 10 projects that are implemented in the field of energy. all of them are handling the issue electricity in a separate way. And it's quite interesting what I've heard, because it's true, this holistic approach definitely is going to be more relevant. This combined heat and power is a solution that we were in position to analyze in a smart city project, but unfortunately we were not able to go to an end with this application. And I'm thinking that definitely it's more relevant to have this holistic approach for defining the right roadmap.
Now, if we need a holistic approach and if we need a roadmap, who is gonna draft it? Are it going to be the regulators? Are it going to be the transmission system operators? Then with a chance that we get the hammer effect. If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Or are we going to ask this to politicians? Who is the driver there?
It has to be political, because this sits way outside the sector of electricity. Okay, we may have joint gas and electricity regulators, but that's as far as it goes. And most places don't even have cross-code governance, even where they have the same regulator. So this has to be politically top-down somehow. And that is where it doesn't work so well in our liberal societies. But unless you do it like that, maybe somehow through the planning regime, it can't come from the power sector alone or the energy sector.
Okay. Clear point.
I think this question we should not let to the specialists. We should ask the generalists, and that comes as well from a dedicated generalist who's heading a quite complicated industry structure. And I always tell them, well, listen, I do not want to know if heterojunction or perovskite or whatever PV panel is the best. But I mean, we need to bring together all of them. And then there was one point I wanted to tell Ronnie. I think holistic approach is good, but sometimes we need as well to ask the right questions. And the right questions go as well about, let's say, real resource efficiency. And when I talk about resource efficiency, I'll give you one example concerning PV panels. That is, depends how you produce it. It takes whether 5, whether 20 years to balance the carbon footprint. So we need to have a look as well there. And then something completely different. You might be surprised, as a German born, I really hate driving my car. Because, well, I do not need to drive a car. What do I need? I need to transport. I need to transport reliable. I need it cheap. So my objective is not that I transport 1.5 ton of metal and plastic. My objective is I want to go from A to B. And if I don't have to be concentrated, for example, when I have to go from Annecy to Geneva, takes me 3/4 of an hour. I have to be concentrated if I drive. If I go with BlaBlaCar, I don't have to do that. I can do BlaBla or I can relax. So I think the personal resource efficiency is as well quite important. And that is something that lots of people, they love to drive a car. Okay, great, why not? But I mean, 5 hours driving the car, afterwards you're completely nuts.
I couldn't agree more.
Ronnie, I know 2 people at least in this group, and can I ask them to say what they think about this roadmap planning from their own constituency and experience that is different from the people that have been talking up to now? And this is David Frank, who's doing a lot of work on the ground, and Fabian. You have already met Fabian this morning. So who should work at delivering a roadmap, and what can be acceptable from a societal point of view, as well as secure and reliable from a technology point of view?
Yes, I'm not sure, David, if you want to start or if I should. I probably start. So for us, this discussion is like super interesting, and it also somehow connected to the point that we discussed about in the morning, where like the TSOs often ask how to get society behind what needs to be done, and how to get society behind the grid extension and this stuff. And here I think it comes to play that without a roadmap and without something that shows why we need the energy turnaround, how fast we need the energy turnaround, how fast we need the grid development, how should get people behind what needs to be done. And therefore I think like one part of, like, of course, politics need to do this roadmap. They need to see the big picture, but also the TSOs need a roadmap that looks at what needs to be done to reach carbon neutrality by 2035 in Germany. And only if they have this roadmap, only then people and society can understand what needs to be done and can get behind those actions. So I mostly agree that it is like a political job that needs to be done, but not only.
Yeah, Fabian, if I may, I showed those 3 circles of concern. How can we get the people really into that roadmap? We have at this moment in Belgium, Elia, which is the mother company of 50 Hertz, is trying to build 60 kilometers of high voltage lines. And there is a unique political consensus that the line should not be built of all mayors along the line. That's never seen.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's what I'm trying to talk about. Like, I think it's like mostly about information and about how we talk about the climate crisis, how we talk about the energy transition, how we talk about like grid development, because how we currently talk about it, I don't think that society, I don't think that most people understand what we need it for, why the climate crisis is such a big danger, and why we need to tackle it fast and why we need to tackle it now. We're still talking about climate neutrality 2050. We're still talking about all those steps and all those things that are way ahead, that are way in the future. But we need to start tackling, and we need to start to move into the right directions now. And I think that's something that is not brought to society, that most people don't know, just because of the way that we talk about it, and just because of how the informations are presented. And I think that's something that is, of course, a political job to be done, but not only. There also come the TSOs into play, and the whole renewable energy industry and the mobility industry, and everyone needs to start talking about this the way it is, and the way it needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Fab. I think David was also David Frank was also mentioned by Antonella, just to give input on this one.
Ronnie, I'm actually driving now, and I can't raise my hand. But but is it my turn? I'm just on audio.
No, it was David Frank. Antonella was pointing to.
Yeah, but I'm really sorry. I was gone for 5 minutes, so the last minute I was out of the discussion. Yeah, so.
So the question is, how can we make those things going? How can we make that roadmap going? Who is going to get people involved in that?
How do you?
We've looked at what. Sorry.
Okay, Stefan, go ahead.
We've looked at what a 100% renewable energy system would look like and how you could get there. For me, 100% renewable isn't necessarily the objective. I personally have no objection to nuclear or even to hydrogen from CCS if that's part of an efficient mix, but it doesn't matter. A substantially renewable energy system is designed differently. And we look at 3 different layers. There's a physical layer. So you look at what demands there are out there. and what kinds of infrastructure meet those demands, whether that's a combination of generation, battery, networks, whatever. But it's not just within the power sector. You look at the sectoral coupling and how far you would spread your net. And in the Saudi Arabian NEOM context, we were looking, they already co-optimize between water and power. You would look at co-optimization with the hydrogen sector and maybe the heating sector. So you have to decide which sectors are integrated and which are separate. So then you get your physical layer, and there might be multiple scenarios from that. We separately then have the societal layer, and that is the extent to which customers will accept different models and different levels of reliability. And then the third level is the economic layer, which is which are the scarce services which then have some value. And below your economic layer, you then frame your market design, which has an obligations layer and an incentives layer. So we've got quite a nice framework for how you might create this system, but it requires a huge amount of cross-sectoral work and a load of cross-societal work. So I believe it's very much a politically driven system. It couldn't be done without that.
But if you say politically driven, and if you say that you're, I know Neil and Saudi Arabia a bit, it's of course, if you have a top-down driven system and you can start from scratch, it's a bit easier than with a given system and a democratic societal decision system, I guess.
I agree. I do think we've got a unique opportunity to set different mindsets. If you fill your petrol car with fuel, you get an energy transfer of something like 15 to 20 megawatts. If you stood there for an hour, there would be 20 megawatt hours of fuel laying on the floor if you pumped. Now, we're used to getting 1,000 kilometers with a 2-minute burst. With electrification of transport, we don't have to set those expectations because they will be super hard to break. We don't have to get firm connections and for our EV charging. So at the moment, we're at the stage of just starting the process of rolling out EV charging and heat pumps. Now is the time to set new expectations about connectivity and reliability. And if we miss this opportunity, then we're sunk. So you can start just within the electricity sector for certain things.
Okay, now, thank you. Anyone else on comments on roadmaps and how to get where we want to go, and integration of roadmaps and the level it should be? Should it be at the TSO level or integrated, and who is going to be the driving seat? The more I hear it, then we expect an awful lot of politics, but then I would raise the question, what is their time horizon? And what is the time horizon we are building on? How can we get a time horizon that politicians make a decision and set out that roadmap for the next 25 years and in a sustainable way want to go for it? I admire the Energiewende for that in Germany, but in my humble country, let us say that stability is a bit lower. Also, if I look to the Netherlands, which have now a big plan, but they always have a big plan, but it changes every 4 years. That's not also not the way to go, I guess. How can we get the plan going, knowing that the plan isn't Europe, has to be by definition a European plan?
Can I intervene? I don't know if you hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, Ronnie. I just joined. We had some other meetings, but of course I agree with what Ronnie is saying about our small country. I think just looking at politicians is certainly not something that will be sufficient. I think the initiative needs to come from the current actors, TSOs as well as DSOs as well as energy generations. I think each party needs to take up its responsibility. And because this is, nobody has the answer. I think we don't have a glass ball, so there's a lot of trial and error also, moving forward with small steps and trying out things. And looking at the right ecosystems to try out those things. I'm looking, for example, at the example of Elia, working together with TSOs on digitalization, on consumer centricity. But I think digitalization to reach the household client and to enable access to renewable energy, to be able that such kind of client also can make a kind of business or has the necessary comfort through this energy transition, I think it's an important point. Also looking at our industrial consumers, I think industrial clients, looking at how would they see their electrification, or how would they see their switch to green hydrogen, for example, and how would we need to adapt our infrastructure to be ready to such needs. So initiating dialogue and looking together with some actors on what we can do, I think it's important. And based on that, making policy recommendations to authorities and not waiting until the policy makers come to us with a roadmap. I think it's we who need to give an input to the policy makers on what is feasible, what is realistic, also looking from an economical perspective, which is very important, I think.
So actually what you're saying, what Stefan was saying, the three layers, physical, societal, and economic, you say we have to give inputs and say what is technically possible, what is economically the results, and then politicians have to make a plan, and we start from the bottom, from the physical layer again. There has to be an iteration process between those elements.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think my
Yeah,
experience
I would agree.
for politicians to have something happening, you're going to be too late. They're
No, I completely agree. We can't wait for the politicians. It needs the politicians, but they will not initiate this. So we have to do the work for them to give them something that they can latch onto. I agree.
Okay.
Dörte wanted to talk.
We have Dörte, we have Andre, we have Antonella. Dörte, thank you, Ilse.
Thank you.
Dörte, are you muted? Hello, Dörte. Dörte?
Dörte, we cannot hear you. You can write something in the chat.
Dörte, you are muted.
Yeah. Let's move to the next one. Maybe she will.
I can. Okay.
Anybody who's on the phone has to dial *6 to unmute.
Okay. Andre, you are raising your hand too?
Yes. I think we need to get inspired by working structures. And Ronnie, since you're in Belgium, one of the companies that I like most in Belgium is EcoPower, created by my friend, together with lots of other friends, Dirk van Sintjan. And Dirk, he's as well heading RESCOP, Renewable Energy Cooperatives. So they know the ground, they know as well what is needed. And I think this local experience is extremely important. And one inside they watch the local necessities, but since they run as well the show, they know exactly as well what the citizens want, and I think that is extremely important. But for the politicians, we need to demonstrate them what is feasible, and then let's start with local feasibility studies. A couple of years ago, the city of Freiburg, where I used to live for quite some time, they said, okay, well, would it be possible for us to become from the energetic point of view, but all included, autonomous? And the result was no. But would it be possible together with neighboring districts, Landkreise in Germany? Then they said yes. So we need to think what is locally feasible, and then what can we do with our neighbors? And there's one image that I like a lot, that my friend Eike Weber, who was the head of Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy in Freiburg, said, for the energy system, we need to think a little bit about with in the sense of communicative tubes. So when one part is full, the water goes to another place. So that when we have too much energy, when we have too much heat, we need to think, okay, where can we store it? And maybe our neighbors can take profit out of that.
Okay. Dörte, do you hear us? Can we hear you? No? Okay, try it. If you have comments, put them in the chat if you want, then we can try to address them. I'm looking at the time. It's 4:08. I think we covered an awful lot of ground. Is there anything that we still have to discuss in detail? But I think that to make it a bit, try to bring it all together, there is a certain need for roadmaps, and the roadmap should not be limited to electricity. Whether you call it distributed or centralized, that's more a philosophical question than a real question, although I love philosophy, but I'm an electrical engineer. So, and that also, if we look at the roadmaps, in theory, it has to be from the coming from the political level. Then we have to distinguish a number of elements in it, being what can be done physically, what can be done, what is acceptable for society, and who has to pay the ferryman. But waiting for the politicians to make that big plan and then executing it is not the way to go, because we won't live long enough to see that happening. And we have to bring input on societal, on technical, and on economic aspects, so that they have the correct information and that they can make the plan, that we are sure that we can execute it. Yes, Miha?
Yeah, I will come with an example regarding this balance, policymakers and regulatory aspects. Definitely, in a way or another, all of them are playing a key role. And I will give one example. We tried to promote the adoption and implementation of some cloud-based services for the DSOs. And we analyzed across Europe the regulatory framework. And what we observed was the fact that there were a lot of incentives for supporting CapEx, the investments, nothing to support the operations. So OpEx was almost all over Europe, mostly excluded from the incentive systems given by the national regulatory authorities. And we try to have this discussion both with the European regulatory organizations and the European Commission directly. As I observed, the regulators are quite reluctant. Even if you come with real facts proving that the OpEx aspects should be supported as well, I mean the cost of service, they are not eager to involve, at least not instantly. And the declic was produced by the fact that the European Commission came through the last version of Clean Energy for All European package with these recommendations. Please try to do a balance supporting OpEx and CapEx as well. And that was the moment when the regulators become a little bit sensitive or at least they were more open to listen what's going to happen if they are going to properly support the OpEx as well. So this is the way how things are going on, as I observed from some specific actions we were running in the context of several projects.
Okay, thank you, Mihai. Given the time, my dear friends, I think Antonella, we have to close these discussions here. I want to thank you. I have 3 pages of notes. I hope I can read them later on, but it was a very interesting and intriguing discussion. It's going to be a very rough ride. Let's be honest. 2030 is tomorrow. 2050 is the day after. And there's one thing that I'm sure of, that if we would write now the perfect roadmap today, that by 2030 it will be look totally different. So whatever we try to do, it's the best we can do what we know now. But if we look 5 years back, did any one of you expect what happens now with batteries 5 years ago? I don't think anyone has. Did anyone expect 10 years ago what was happening with PV? Now, I don't think that anyone has. Did anyone expected that the offshore wind prices would be as low as we have them now? I don't think that anyone has. Did we expect 10 years ago that HVDC would be so really flying by 2020? I don't think anyone has. So let's be sure that we don't know what's going to happen in 2030, but let's work together to get there and to get there on time. Antonella, you're...
Some logistics. Ronnie, please, you keep your video on. There was a sign that we have 1.5 minutes left. You will be automatically brought back, all of you, into the plenary session. So don't disconnect, and